have abundance. Because whoever is spiritually aligned actually have abundance. So somewhere with this misconstructed thing of either contentment or spiritual rootedness and materialistic ambitions cannot coexist. Good people are not aspiring for prosperity, wealth, not realizing, I repeat, and I'll repeat one more time and maybe one more time, financial surplus in the hands of a bad human being will destroy the existing world. Financial surplus in the hands of a good human being will build a better world. I just need to do a small demonstration right now. And Kavya, if you don't mind, can I have you on the stage for a minute, please? Anybody here who has money? I'll give it back. I just want you to watch this demonstration. I've dropped the 1,000 rupee note there, and Kavya, I'm going to come and stand behind you. I want you to walk past that 1,000 rupee note. However tempting it is, don't pick it up. Okay? Just walk past. Now listen carefully. A beautiful human being in Kavya saw that money. For some reason she thought, this is not my money, so I will not touch it. Behind Kavya, one rogue came. And that rogue picked up that 1,000 rupee note. This is for speech's sake, okay? Don't put in social media, Mahatreya admitted that he is a rogue. Okay, this is for speech's sake. Now the rogue who has this 1,000 rupee note will buy a knife with this and threaten a few more people, hurt a few more people to earn a few more 1,000 rupees. Right now what we keep telling the world is, all the bad that is happening in the world is happening because of bad people. Because bad people are destroying the world, terrorists are destroying the world, corrupt politicians are destroying the world. I have a very, very different paradigm to this. Kavya, we have to repeat this demo. This time pick up the 1,000. Pick up the 1,000. Don't show it. She will give, she will give. Okay. He has become nervous. He didn't know that my speech will cost him 1,000 rupees. The good human being picked up the 1,000 rupee notes. Now the rogue comes. There's no money to pick up. I can't do bad to the world because I don't have money to do bad to the world, because money has already gone to the good human being. There is only one way to vanquish all the evil in the world. All bad people should become poor. And there is only one way all bad people can become poor. All good people should become rich. There is no other way to do it. Celebrate right now. Now, of course, I live in a country where three categories of people, if they become rich, it cannot be accepted in my country. Teachers, doctors, and gurus should never become rich. They should always remain poor, wear languti, and teacher should always come in TVS 50. Doctors should have third-hand Fiat car, and guru should always be half naked. Somehow, these three categories of people, if they have money, media will turn against you, politician will turn against you, public will envy you. Unfortunately, these three will only create the future of the world. So you have to be rich. You have to be rich. Good cannot happen without infrastructure. And I'm discussing science. I'm discussing logic. I'm discussing a fact that you cannot argue or debate with me. I'm discussing a truth that you cannot challenge. Good cannot happen in the world without infrastructure. If you have to provide good education, you need good institutions. If children have to involve themselves in research and development, we have to give them the microscopes, the various gadgets that are required for them to do this research. If we have to do this program, we need an auditorium. If the auditorium can hold 450 people, good will happen to 450 people. If this auditorium could hold 4,500 people, good would have happened to 4,500 people. And the size of the infrastructure is directly proportionate to the amount of good that can be done in the world. When it was 17-bed hospital, it could do good to 17 families. When it was a 100-bed hospital, it could do good to 100 families. Now when it's a 500-bed, at any concurrent time, it can do good to thousands of families right now. And tomorrow, if this can be 5,000-bed specialty hospital, the world will converge here and so much good can happen to the world. Without infrastructure, good cannot be done. Even for you to pray, a church, a mosque, a temple is required, and it's infrastructure. Good cannot happen without infrastructure, and infrastructure cannot happen without money. Now, either bad people will create the money and create the infrastructure to destroy the world, or good people will earn the money. I'm sowing an ambition here. It's not enough you're outstanding doctors, you have to be successful doctors. And a lot of good will happen in the world through you. 2, the second paradigm that is required. Good people have to become leaders. The world will follow. The world will follow. It really doesn't matter. You can be Osama bin Laden, you can be ISIS, you can be a joker of a politician, you can be a corrupt politician, you can be a celebrity, you can be a noble-hearted soul, you can be a doctor entrepreneur, you can be head of an institution, you can be a motivational speaker, you can be a spiritualist. The world will follow. Whether you like it or not, the world likes to follow. There is no shortage or poverty of followers in the world. The shortage is for leadership. And because in our leadership across the world, except people who went to England and studied political leadership, where they teach leadership there, from the universities of United States of America to Australia, through India, we do not teach leadership in our education system. All of us are taught to be good doctors, good engineers, good teachers. We are never taught, even in MBA, we are taught to be good managers, not leaders. There's nothing in our education system to create leaders. So, leaders are accidentally discovering that they can be leaders. We need doctor leaders. If you are a good ophthalmologist, you will help a few people. If you are a doctor leader, you can build a Shankar Netralaya. If you are a good doctor, you can help a lot of people. But if you are a doctor who also has leadership, a Ganga hospital can be created. Infrastructure can be created. Lot of good doctors can be brought together. And there are no born leaders. Even Mahatma Gandhi's and Jawaharlal Nehru's and Nelson Mandela's discovered leadership in them in the mid ages of their life. In 30s and 40s only they discovered there was leadership in them. There is no theory and basis to born leaders. Leadership is a cultivatable trait. You have to change the definition. You're not just an anesthetist, or you're not just a wife of a doctor, or you're not just child of a legendary person, or you're not just a doctor. You have to give yourself a larger definition to live up to. The way you will be able to utilize yourself as an individual, and the way you will be able to utilize if you can lead a team, the difference is in geometric progression. We need a lot of doctor leaders, especially all the youngsters sitting here. Don't wait for 40, 50 years of your life to realize that you could have maximized your potential a lot more. And it's concurrent. Leadership is not in designation. It's not about promotion. It's not about position. It's not about label. From the way you walk, from the way you think, from the way you talk, from the way you feel responsible, the way you are willing to assume responsibilities. Now, who told him? Go and introduce what is good to the rest of the world. Who told him that? You assume responsibility. And I saw the difference personally after being a computer professional and focused on only me, mine, myself, my bank balance, my family, and living 11 years of my life only on software. And when a postgraduate B.Ed committed her suicide because she couldn't handle the emotions of her marriage in October 94, I couldn't resist but ask myself this question: what is the use of an education system that does not teach us how to live life? We are taught languages, we are not taught communication. We are taught to be competitive. But when we fail, nobody teaches us how to practice resilience and bounce back from these failures. Nobody teaches us. We are taught science, but nobody teaches us the science of life. Can something be done about it? If a postgraduate B.Ed, there are doctors who commit suicide because there is a love failure. Doctors are supposed to save lives, not give up on their life. Suicide is like removing head because you have headache. I have a problem in life, so I'll give up life. Doesn't lead us anywhere. And I told myself, let me take this responsibility. Let me go and use myself every day and be useful to the world and scream to the world that life is an alternative, death is not. And in assuming that one responsibility, nobody gave me this responsibility. The first trait of leadership is, I will assume responsibility. Don't wait. Wherever you are working, there is some place which needs leadership. Put your hand up and say, give me additional responsibility. Give me additional money. I want to make more money. It will come as a natural byproduct of executing leadership. The barrister, an ordinary barrister, a selfish barrister, in assuming responsibility for a nation, discovered a Mahatma Gandhi within it. A scientist, in assuming responsibility for the youth of this India, became such a phenomenal president that ever since Gandhi, I don't think any one person's death in this country people identified with, like Dr. Abdul Kalam. From auto stands to tea stalls to universities, everybody identified. Why? He assumed a bigger responsibility. An ordinary school teacher, in assuming responsibility for the destitute, was known as Mother Teresa. A carpenter's son, assuming responsibility to take people closer to God, became Jesus Christ. A charioteer, in assuming responsibility to restore the greatness of a warrior, unfolded one of the greatest precious wisdom to the world called Bhagavad Gita. Ordinary people, by the size of the responsibility they assume, become extraordinary people. We need doctors who can be leaders, not just doctors who are doctors. You have to create a legacy. You have to be a game changer. Something out there in the world should have been different few years ago, should become different few years later because of you. Doctors have to be rich. Doctors have to become leaders. And that's how you maximize your life. When you can live a life where your life can impact hundreds of people and thousands of people, why should you ever be satisfied working with tens of people and 50s of people. It's not there in the education system. It's not going to come out of reading a book. It comes out of you undergoing a complete change in the thought process. It's called transformation. Right now you have certain formation of value systems, certain formation of beliefs, certain formation of outlook towards life. And your life is just a direct reflection of your beliefs. If you have to change your life, you have to change your beliefs. This formation inside you must be changed. You got to believe that you are not here to be just another statistical entity. You are not here to just be one more anesthetist. You are not here to aid another 5 to 7 surgeries per day and play a job from the background. This has to change here first. Transcending the old formation into a new formation is called transformation. Everything else is only information. You can attend this entire convention, listen to speakers after speakers, go through experiential workshops, take as much notes as possible, and you have gathered some more useful information. And in this entire thing, even if one trigger, one shift in your belief, one change in your value system, one change in your outlook towards life, something in your DNA should change. Something deep within you has to believe you're not here just to be a barrister. You're not just here to be another ophthalmologist. You're not just here to be another anesthetist. You're not just here to be another software guy. You're not just here to be just another school teacher. And all these people who did something legendary with their life were able to do something legendary with their life because at some stage of their life, something in the core belief through which they looked at life underwent a change. If I hold, some of you will be able to relate to it. A lot of you who are less than 30 may not understand what I'm speaking. But during our times when we used to grow, one of the excitement we used to have is to buy these color cellophane papers. So if you hold a red transparent cellophane paper, everything will look red for you. If you hold blue, everything will look blue for you. If you hold yellow, everything will look yellow for you. That transparent cellophane paper of different colors is your beliefs towards life. You have to be practical. Suddenly from a middle class family, we will not be able to go to the next leg of financial prosperity. You believe so, you are true. You will live a life to your belief. Even God cannot give you more than what you believe your life can be. God will execute the script you believe. Cannot change the script. That script has to be changed by you. And I'm not giving a speech. A part of me is crying, sometimes wondering, if good people are rich and good people are leaders, what sort of a world we will live in? And if you keep staying quiet, and that's a fabulous expression which Krishna gives to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, doing what you should not be doing alone is not wrong, Arjuna. No, I should not rape. I should not loot others' money. I should not come up in life ruining somebody's opportunity. I think all of us, to a very large extent, are ethical, moral people. But Krishna calls out to Arjuna here saying that, hey Arjuna, doing what you should not be doing alone is not wrong, Arjuna. Not doing what you should be doing is also wrong, Arjuna. As simple as doctors taking care of everybody's health and doctors not taking care of your own health is wrong, according to Krishna. I have rarely seen Not more than 25% of the entire doctor fraternity exercises on a daily basis. This is almost like you want to be loyal to other doctors by becoming their patients. If I take care of my health, I won't. So let me take care of the bread of the council. Let me become a patient to other doctors. I know what your loyalty is all about. And there is not a single doctor who has not advised other people post-surgery that you should exercise regularly, you should get physiotherapy help, and you will have to, that is how you recover the whole thing. And it surprises me. In fact, it surprises me when doctors invite me and say, is it okay if it's a cocktail party? And I ask the doctors, what did you advise your patient in your discharge sheet? No more alcohol. And in the evening, they go and drink. And layman like me who does not understand what happens inside the body, if I live such a stupid life, I can understand. You guys know, especially because you're an anesthetist, there is nothing you don't know. In fact, you know certain things about human body which God is not clear about it, but you have clarity on that. In fact, whenever I talk to an anesthetist, it blows me. You can show your tongue and say blisters and he assigns to it. You can cough and he can give you a technical paper on cardiovascular health. There isn't anything an anesthetist does not know. So you know how your body responds. And it's surprising to see not even 25% of the doctors invest an hour a day to take care of their health. And Krishna says, Arjuna, not only doing what you should not be doing is wrong, not doing what you should be doing, there are certain responsibilities and not executing those responsibilities is wrong, Arjuna. And then he continues, as a Kshatriya, you have the responsibility to protect righteousness. And in modern times, I believe, good people not being rich is wrong. Good people not becoming leaders is wrong. Doctors not thinking like leaders is wrong. And once that paradigm shift, that transformation comes inside you, then the manifestation of it, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the sheer power of collective leadership and collective prosperity of all the good people together, it's a very, very different world we will live in. It's a tough job. I'm not saying what you're doing. Whatever I spoke till now was not there in the plan. I was not thinking about speaking, but I saw you and I felt like talking about it. Yours isn't an easy job. You're expected to be a Superman all the time. And it's a tough job because you will have to vacillate between being the doctor who is supposed to be an authority on whatever you do, and after you remove your doctor's coat, free from labels, to go home and to just be a father, a mother, a son, a husband, a wife, and a daughter, and not operate on the authority of those labels, because people don't want a super doctor to come home. They want a father to come home. They want a husband to come home. You're supposed to be vulnerable there. Because if you are not vulnerable there, it creates a lot of ego issues in relationship. In fact, the more successful a man is, the more he struggles ego issues in his personal relationship, because it's so difficult. How to tell human ego, it's already 9:30 in the night, now you go home. How to leave the ego at the door and come. So you still feel, you have saved 3 lives today. And with that feeling, demigod, you enter the house there. And she asks you, have you brought the milk? What? Milk. I forgot. 14 years I am going through this with you. You will not change at all. Okay, my father made a mistake. Now what is the point in talking about all these things? And now all the science you studied does not come handy. You also feel, maybe I should have never got married. And the shifting between playing the role on authority, I always remember this. And that's the lighter side of life. You have to That's why I wanted you to be sincere and not serious from the beginning. You have to learn to laugh at that moments. Don't take yourself so seriously. Don't take everything personal. That's the lighter side of life. I remember I was having a public discourse in the evening, and it was supposed to be, what is the role of intelligence in surrender and faith? Everybody says you should surrender, you should have faith in God. Then what is the role of human intelligence in surrender and faith? And that evening was my discourse. And I didn't know driving, so I was learning driving during those days. So in the morning when I was with my driving instructor and he was teaching me, I learned driving only when I was about 30, 32. And there was a cycle that was going. All through my life I've been in a bike. The advantage with the bike is left side, right side, any side is right side. Okay. So if you find one gap between the pedestrian pathway and cyclist, you go between that. If the bus is parked in front of a bus stop where people are getting down, but you can see a gap, if you can see a gap, you can go. That is a bike's concept. Even in a signal when we park, if we find enough space only for the front wheel, we'll put the front wheel there and wait. So when I saw that gap between cyclist and on the left side of the road, my years of conditioning, I decided I'll go in that gap. And the driving instructor stamped his feet on my feet to press the brakes and looked at me and asked me, blunt in Tamil, Aruvilla? He asked me, you have no intelligence? How to tell him in the evening I have a discourse on what is the role of intelligence and surrender and faith. Now you can get upset about it or you can laugh. I laughed so much about that incident. Doctors should have a sense of humor, and you develop sense of humor by enjoying humor. I still remember going to Raju Narsingam, one of those hospitals in Chennai, to see a cousin of mine. And my cousin told the doctor, Doc, every time I do like this, it pains. Without battling an eyelid, the doctor said, then don't do like that. Now, I thought one of the greatest philosophy of life was explained in that moment. Ever since anybody comes to me for counseling and they tell me, why every time I talk about this subject, my husband gets angry? I tell them, don't talk about that subject. Okay. And tell them this incident and share with them, saying that, I'm telling you, people say, 8:30 to 9, if you go to office, there's too much traffic. Then don't go between 8:30. And I can't miss this body language because I can still see Dr. Ravi Shankar telling me, if I do like this, pains, then don't do like that. And sometimes you have to learn to laugh at that. I remember my wife telling one of the Infinities once, I wonder when he will shut up, how you people pay money to listen to him. And you have to learn to enjoy. You have only this one life. Empathizing with the pain is one thing. Getting identified with it is another thing. You have to sow in a smile in the world, and you can't do that if you don't have one. I don't miss wishing people happy morning, because good morning has been there for centuries together and it has lost its value, because today when you tell people good morning, they don't reply. So this at least jerks people. When I tell them happy morning, they turn, what? What you told? I said happy morning. What's happiness about today? I saw you just now. Okay. Happy people don't fight with each other. Miserable people fight with each other. Egoistic people fight with each other. Happy people do not fight with each other. I never miss an opportunity to tell people, how are you? Top of the world. Why? People ask. I know it's a tough job, but the only way you're going to shift through roles, it's not that every day you have worked till 9:30, 10 in the hospital, you stay back in the hospital. You guys, you're scared about going home sometimes and handling that situation without this label, because here, whatever you say, everybody listens. What you write is prescription, what you say is diagnosis, everybody listens to you. Once you go there, they put you in touch with your IQ levels. Even milk you could not remember. And I know what you go through when your 8th standard son comes